Welcome to Spirit Healer, a Hearthstone Mercenaries Podcast. Your resting point between quests. Let's join our hosts as we talk about this week's events in Hearthstone Mercenaries. Well, hello everyone. Welcome to Spirit Healer, a Hearthstone Mercenaries Podcast. A podcast focused on taking you through Mercenaries news, updates, and weekly topics to keep you at the top of your Mercenaries game. I am dragonrider. No, I'm not. It's Cinder. I'm joined this week. It's just gonna be me and Siimba this week.
I am Maestro of the Masquerade. Everyone, as always.
There we go. Will I get nerfed is the real question. If this becomes a problem,
I prefer to just get vaulted.
I'm glad to see you on your feet, man. And everybody's been sick, but yeah, you're back.
Yes, we're no longer dying. My immune system said, "Haha, COVID. You're a little puny virus now that we have been pricked multiple times and sent to halfway near our grave multiple times. But now, now we're strong enough to defeat any version of you."
We hope. Let's keep our fingers crossed on that. Yeah. So if you may have noticed an absence of the Spirit Healer in your podcast feed this past week, we apologize for that. Everybody had COVID. Dawn is still a little under the weather. So we hope that she's getting cozy and getting some tea and soup and feeling better soon. But yeah, so me and Siimba are going to hang out today and talk about the news. Some big news this past, well, I guess it was about 2 weeks ago at this point, but let's talk about it. So we all know Paul Nguyen, Kaizor in the Discord, the Mercenaries Discord, dropped in and gave us some updates. Let's take these one bullet point at a time, Siimba. So the first thing he says is they're restructuring the team, the internal Hearthstone team, Team 5. Mercenaries is now one of the main pods, fully dedicated support from other disciplines, so they should make the things we want to accomplish this year easier to do, and says he can't really talk about it yet. But that means reallocating all of the internal Team 5 resources, so that's, game development, writing, play testing, art direction, all of that stuff, coding, going into Mercenaries full force into 2022. That sounds pretty exciting.
It sounds like a banger of an idea. It also sort of proves to me not that it was a second thought game mode, because I'm sure that they're all at all times into all of their game modes and making sure that they are running to the best of their ability. But it as a person who has had ups and downs playing Mercenaries, knowing that the teams are willing to allocate resources directly to it to make sure that it performs the way they want it to, that makes me very happy. And excited as a consumer and player and supporter of the games and the game modes.
Yeah, because I feel like kind of what happened with Mercenaries was, they made the launch, right? And they introduced this new game mode. But then almost right after that, here comes Fractured and Alterac Valley. I mean, also, terrible news at Activision, which didn't help either. But there was a lot that happened right after Mercenaries launched that really got in the way of Mercenaries really being able to sink its teeth into the community, I feel like.
Yeah, they didn't do a phenomenal job at spreading that out at all, which, for what it did, it came out, pretty smoothly. But just to be overshadowed by a game mode that is already popular, if that makes sense, like that's what happened, at least for me too, right? I'm like, hey, these are brand new cards. I'm gonna have to carve out a way to get to Legend again, like this, that, and the next. And so, like, my interest had not yet peaked fully for the new game mode before the existing game mode that I'm already comfortable with, and I don't know if I want to say in love with, right, that I'm playing all the time came out. Because that's just what you're gonna gravitate to. It's the same way with your news sources or your favorite streamers or anything like that. When you have someone you're comfortable with, it's not that you'll never shy away or branch out or find something new that you like, maybe even better, but you're gonna go with what you know at first. That's my experience anyways.
Yeah, people need a fallback, right? Like, oh, this isn't as great. It's, I'm gonna go back to whatever I was doing before. And it doesn't help that Mercenaries is in the same game client with, multiple other modes, so you don't even have to like quit the game. You can just hit back twice and you're back to, the launch screen. So, it's kind of fighting with itself a little bit. But, I think this is a good turning point. This is a good omen where they say, no, 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 this we still want this to succeed. So they're gonna refocus on to Mercenaries and really try to make it successful. And just looking at these bullet points that Kaiser was talking about, and we'll get to these other bullet points in a second. But this, what we're seeing here with these little teaser comments, this is like a 6-month roadmap. Like this is stuff that's not this isn't stuff that's happening next week or not even in the next patch. They're talking about stuff that's happening in multiple future patches. So that kind of tells me that they're not just saying this to say it, to try to convince people that Mercenaries is still a thing. This really is the internal plan. This is really the long-term plan for Mercenaries to really start getting the bulk of the work now.
And looking at just how spread out these new bullet points are, and how spread out, I guess the stuff at the beginning wasn't spread out. It was actually all dropped on us at the same time. So
Yeah.
ignore that. But it's spaced out to a point where it's like, even if I don't get pulled back in right now after this podcast episode, or even 2 patches from now, like there's still going to be new stuff, and that almost makes me want to stay more engaged, knowing that I'll just keep getting stuff every couple patches. But big stuff, not just filler updates. I mean, I'm staring at the bullet points, so that's why I'm so excited. But
Yeah. Okay, we'll stop teasing it. We'll talk about the first one here. So 22.2 is what Kaizor said, and just for reference, the Hearthstone client is currently on 22.0. Fractured and Alterac Valley was 22.0. So 22.2 could be the next expansion, which would be March. There's usually an interim patch before they get to the big next one. That's like if they have to do like really big balance changes, they'll do that at the midpoint, and then 22.2, I assume, would be the next expansion. So he says new mercs, new zones, new bounties. That, I mean, of course, that is good. We always want more content, right? We new mercs to grind over, wonderful. But the new bounties is good. We like that too. New rewards, new coins, etc. And then here's the big thing: Training Grounds version 1 should be out as well. Okay, Siimba, we've talked about this before. Training Grounds is kind of like the XP share, right? This is what we've been waiting for.
Training Grounds is 100% the XP share, or the daycare, or however you want to look at it. It is going to be a way for you to passively allow your mercenaries to gain experience. It hasn't been specified if it's while you're playing the game, or while you're in the client, or you just leave it in there. But no matter how you look at it, it's a way to take some of the strain off of upgrading some of those mercenaries that you're not using. Or if you only have a certain amount of time per day, right, it'd take you a super long time to get everything maxed out, right? It's not terrible to get your mercenaries to level 30, but if you can skip some of that time, then it gives you more time to do the maxing out of your characters. And so that's phenomenal. Training Grounds version 1 coming out so soon. I say so soon because I feel like it wasn't necessarily an idea that they had beforehand. I could be completely wrong. I haven't asked them, but the news on it came out seemingly right after we had brought it up. So I'm choosing to look at it as like, oh, hey, they just listened to us really, really well. And I love that. And so that's super cool. Along with, like you said, the new zone and the new bounties. But I feel like you kind of have to have those coming out based on how the game mode is set up. Like those are mandatory things. If you don't have those things come out and continuously update, stuff just gets not even stale. Like there's just no new content. You would just have to replay it all.
Right, which nobody really wants to do that. They're fun to go through the first time, but once you beat them, like it starts to become a little bit of a chore to have to go back to battle for coins and tasks and whatnot. So like having a multitude of zones to play in, with different kinds of enemies and different bosses and maybe things that need totally different comps and strategies would really go a long way, I think, to easing on the how much of a grind the game can feel like sometimes. And obviously, like the XP share, big time. Like you said it, like not having to level stuff up to 30. would be a huge step taken out of that front loaded work that you have to do to get a comp going. It's like the least favorite thing of mine is having to drag somebody along on a party to try to level them up while I'm doing other things. So yeah, this is great. I can't wait for this.
Yeah, it's gonna be it's gonna be phenomenal. And what's the last thing on this bullet point? So third equipment, which used to be you get this equipment from completing task number 7 for that mercenary. You will now get them from clearing the appropriate heroic bounty, specifically with them on your team. How do we feel about that?
That is it. It's a lot easier than getting somebody to task number 7. I will tell you that. But think about that for a second. The tasks. This makes the tasks no longer a requirement. You could do no tasks if you wanted to for a mercenary. None. The tasks are now going to be exclusively coins because the only other reward they had for tasks was the equipment. So now the equipment is simply just beat this boss. That is again like easing up on the grind. It's that's two things that tell me that they know that the grind is a wall and they want to get people past that hump and get them into other content, which is chef's kiss. Like that's what we're looking for.
Yeah, I think it's phenomenal, but I mostly think it's phenomenal paired with the training grounds because without it, I don't want to say it seems a little gatekeepy, but my brain's first thought was, wow, I'm having such a struggle right now on these heroic bounties that I might not have if I had some other mercs leveled up to 30. So like, who knows? Maybe it'll be a heroic bounty that I can't complete to get that equipment that would have been from task number 7. However, with the training grounds also coming into effect, if I'm using a comp and it's not working and I switch it up and it's not working, I'm like, dang, I really want to try this other mercenary in a comp. I can put them in the training grounds while I'm completing some other stuff or playing competitive or something like that, and then be able to come in and swap in and out. Obviously, they won't be maxed. You'll still have to use your coins to, make your, make your equipment and stuff be stronger. But the training grounds is what really makes the swap from task number 7 to the appropriate heroic bounty seem phenomenal for me.
And just to note, that is heroic bounties. That's the hard mode for whatever that bounty is.
Yeah,
So
which is why it'd be super
it is
hard
going
if
to
you
be tough.
didn't have all those mercs.
Right, but again, like you said, now we're going to level them up, and so this really makes once you take the leveling out and once you take the equipment out of the grind equation, then really the only thing that you will ever grind for is coins, and coins can come from packs as well. So now we're really in a situation where you can truly skip the grind altogether if you plunk down the money, which is I mean, if any free to or what's the word we're thinking of? There was a free to pay to not grind. Free to grind. I don't know, but
Free to
you can
grind. That's the one.
you
Be
can
when I go to the
you
club.
can
Just
skip.
kidding.
Wait, I got a noise for that. Hang on. There we go. So you can skip the grind by plunking down the money because money is time and time is money. Because if you were invested financially in the game with your money dollars, you couldn't skip the grind. You still had to level up. You still had to grind out task 7. Now you don't, or at least you won't once these changes are implemented. And I think that's fair. I think it's a freemium game. That's the whole business model. You can either pay the money and go to the front of the line, or you can grind it out for free. I that's just the reality of it, and I'm fine with it because the last thing I want to see is people buy into the game and then not want to play it. Like I want people, if they spent the money, to want to keep playing. That's the end goal, right?
Yes, that is the end goal. That is my end goal. You were just talking about me. It's fine. You can just let them know. Just straight up talking about me while I'm here. It's okay.
It's okay. We're talking. This is a self-referential podcast. So last point here. Not a lot to talk about, but there's a big space to speculate on here. 22.4 is the next patch that he mentions, and 22.4. We're talking 6 months away. We're talking what months do the expansions drop on?
March, June. I want to say September, December.
And then Yeah, September and then December, right? So we're talking June here. This is 6 months away. Here's what he says: trying to see if we can deliver on a new feature that I'm actively working on right now. Hopefully, we can make it in time. Okay, how vague is that? But you're talking about an entirely new something that they're adding to the game, an entire new element. I mean, if you think about your little village, around your little campfire in the mercenaries mode, there's a whole section on the bottom left that's just blank.
Yeah, it's just vibing there.
Yeah, so there's something that they've been planning, obviously. So again, refocusing all their people to zone in on this. So like Simba, what if you could add anything to this game, any one element, what would you want to add in?
If I could add any element into the game, I would want to add in something random. I will elaborate on that because it doesn't necessarily make sense, but right now the random aspect is like where the spirit healer is going to be. Is the boon going to be for the fighters or the casters? But like once you get to the boss, like that boss is always the same, and theoretically, so are all of spots that you hit beforehand. It just mixes up where they are. I think it'd be cool to see. I don't even know how this would work, but where the boss is randomized or the run is randomized, and so you go in with what you think your best comp is going to be, and then it's either a random boss every time or simply make it as far as you can before you're eliminated. And so obviously you'll have
Ooh,
two or three choices every time you get to a crossroads, right? You're going to go fight the fighters or the casters. You need to hit the spirit healer. Are you going to get a boon? Maybe there'll be a chance to collect more than one Spud Me, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then maybe there's like bosses every so many fights or something like that, right? Where you can just go in and it's like, in reality, how good is your comp? Like, really, how good is your comp? Can you beat everything, or is this tailored towards just beating Red Black Hand? Like, what are we doing out here? Because at that point, it gets extremely competitive and almost even more so because of the luck aspect of it, right? So you could go in with the same comp as someone else, and if they get different battles offered, they could make it farther than you. Which is just, I don't know, I'd get super jealous and like they'd just make me want to keep going back and going run after run after run after run. See how far I can get, right? Because there's gonna be a very clear leader. It's not like everybody's at the same MMR. Like someone has gotten the farthest or beaten the most bosses.
so you actually in that there were actually two distinct ideas that I think could be really cool. One of them being, the random bounty, or almost you could say procedurally generated bounties, right? Where
Yeah.
you just queue up whatever and in the game just makes a bounty for you. That would keep the game like super fresh, I think. And this is something that they do in Final Fantasy 14 somewhat. So like when you're doing dungeons, you can enter what they call the roulette, where you're randomly paired up with other people in a random dungeon and you get bonus experience and bonus items for doing this, because it's a good way to get new people in through dungeons, as they're leveling up, because you'll get randomly paired with like really high level people who know the dungeon already. So not exactly the same, but same kind of concept, where it's like every time you press the button, you're going to get something new, right? And actually, I almost it feels more like Hades, right? Where it's kind of the same game, but it's different every time you go,
Yes,
which would be really cool.
that is actively. So I'm gonna play Hades on stream this week. I hadn't told you that. I know you just brought it up randomly, but that's
Ayo.
the appeal to me of Hades, right? Because there's an in game. There's very clearly a you have escaped, but every run is different, and there's multiple builds that could get you there, and there's builds stronger than what you've had. There's builds weaker than what you've had. You're not gonna fight the same bosses every single time. Like even the first boss, there's three choices, right? You don't know which one you're gonna get at the very first boss, and that's exhilarating for me for a PVE style game, right? And like as someone who plays mostly PvP, like that's what keeps me interested in PvE is stuff being changed up.
And then the other thing that you mentioned that I think would be awesome is like an endurance mode, right? Where the bounty just does not end. It just keeps going and it keeps going and keep going, and you see how far you can get. And that too, of course, would be procedurally generated, but then do like uh the further you get, the more coins you get. Could you imagine how much people would be incentivized to do that if like it was a risk reward system and you could just go on like a 2-hour run and come out with like hundreds of coins for getting that far? People would lose their minds for that. Are you kidding? I would love to see something like that.
Yeah, it'd be like, I don't even know. It's like arena on steroids. Like that'd be amazing.
Yeah. I'm kind of digging into my RPG roots again because there are many games that have had this kind of mode. I'm mentioning Final Fantasy 14 again. They had an endless dungeon mode as well, where the further you got, the better the gear drops were. But like even like Final Fantasy Tactics, like going all the way back to there was like a 100 level dungeon, and you just got as far as you could get, and the each level was harder and harder and harder every time you played it. So all kind of space where they could explore that, which would be just so rad.
I mean, shoot, we'd be having time of our lives tomorrow. Like I'd be able to easily have entire streams or even off stream, right? Everything doesn't have to be about a stream, but like dedicated to that, dedicated time, hours to that, where I didn't get bored or had a lot of fun, or I mean, that would make for great content, right? Chat gets to pick your comp, or post on YouTube, hour and a half long run, and people are like, how the heck did you manage to do this for an hour and a half without AFKing? You're like, I don't know. I guess I'm just a beast, you know. That'll give people ideas to run for themselves. I think it would make people just excited about the game mode, not even just the infinite dungeon, but all parts of it.
Yeah.
And you'd still have to grind, for your equipments and stuff, because at a certain point in time, like if you're everything's level 30, but you don't have max equipment or attacks, like you're not going to be able to get as far as some other people. Granted, when you're doing those runs, you're probably getting experience along the way. And like you said, coins, right? If I can do a run and get exponentially more coins the farther I get, well, that means more upgrades as well. So, I make it 20 battles, I get a bunch of coins, I upgrade an attack and an equipment, and now I make it 25 battles, same thing. Now I've made it 35 battles. I'm going back in. Like, that's what I'm doing next.
Yeah. Are y'all listening, Team 5? You hearing this? This is good stuff here. And just fantastic point, too. How good would it be for content creation? Like, that's brilliant. I love it. Like, I would tune into that. I would tune into somebody doing, just marathon runs of like the endless bounty. That would be really cool.
Yeah, because I currently, I don't even want to say that I haven't sought out anybody playing Mercenaries. I simply do not see it. I see Standard, I see Wild, I see a lot of Battlegrounds, and it's really cool how many streamers have just been like, hey, I play Battlegrounds now. Like, I came from Standard, but that's what I play and focus on is Battlegrounds now. But I don't see Mercenary streamers. I know Rarin for a while was like streaming Mercenaries and doing some Mercenaries content on YouTube. But I feel like a lot of the Mercenaries content, I wouldn't say is a second thought, but it's on the side. It is on the side. And that's just what it is.
Yeah.
I don't think that's a terrible thing, because that's just the state of where the game mode is right now. People are more interested in the other stuff, so that's what they're gonna, put out. So if we can find these ways to make it some people's, main game mode, or even give it a 50-50 time split, right? That'd be tremendous. That'd be a tremendous upswing.
Yeah, you're mentioning like, mercenary specific streamers, and the kind of the ones that come to mind, like Mullahu and Dallas. Like those streamers are playing Standard right now, and they are branded as Mercenaries players. So that should kind of shed the light on where the dynamic is in the game mode right now. Because I mean, Fractured and Alterac Valley is pretty good. It's a pretty good expansion. People have their complaints. People have their complaints about every expansion, but it's a pretty fun expansion, I gotta say.
I agree with that. Honestly, I have no problem with the expansion, except for the fact that we've figured out how to now use Maestra. That's the only frustrating thing. Like even the cost of Wild Paw Knolls without Maestra is, in my personal opinion, not a problem. Like it's just it doesn't hit the same without Maestra being a thing. And it's like, on one hand, like as the design team, you're like, oh my gosh, this card that we put in the game to make it super fun, like it's hidden now. Like I always see it everywhere. Like as a player, I'm like, can you get rid of it again? Like we weren't using it before. Can we stop? Can we stop? I don't like it here. It's not fun. And then like
Yeah.
in tournament
Wow.
settings, I know we're not supposed to be talking about standard, but in tournament
Well,
settings, you're
whatever.
required to use the standard Hearthstone card back in order to make it legal. And
Yep.
it's like that's great. There is not that on ladder, right? So I'm mulliganing to face priest, and I think I have 5 turns before anything gets played. And all of a sudden,
Mhm.
turn 2, there's 2 wild pod moles, and I have lost. I am lost. At like, there's no winning. There's 2 4 5s on the board, and in my turn, or in my hand, right, I have like a brain freeze, and I'm like,
Yeah,
concede.
it'd be
Queue
like
up next
that.
game. Awesome. Sounds good.
I mean, tournaments aren't much better. It's like rogue. There's really overrepresented rogues in tournaments right now. But anyway, yes, we're not the standard mode podcast.
Yeah.
Mercenaries podcast.
On to the last half of the last point.
Yes. So here's my wish for the little bottom left of the campfire village thing. Co-op. Co-op mode. End of story.
Oh, like that
Have
one
like
tavern
a
brawl? Sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah, oh yeah, sort of like that. But
Oh,
imagine like I used to play the WoW TCG, right? And one
yes.
of the coolest things they did dungeon decks and raid decks. And dungeon decks required like 2 or 3 people to play their decks together against one person who was playing the dungeon. And then the raid decks, you had to have a full party of 5 people to all cooperatively play their decks together and in conjunction with each other, like healing each other and stuff against one player playing as the raid, as Malfurion, or not Malfurion, against like Ragnaros, or whatever the raid boss was. I think Deathwing was one of them that they had. But just having a cooperative system where you could have like a really difficult bounty, but you have like 2 or 3 people playing together on the field, which I don't think the Hearthstone client can accommodate that, but I think it would be a cool idea.
I think
Um,
that'd be an awesome idea.
yeah. So the last point here is the second last half of the last point. After this 22.4, after this mystery new asset that they're working on, he says after that the focus will be on an end system for PvE. So all the speculation that we're talking about, I think, is kind of like an end system for PvE. So whatever they're working on isn't even that. It's something totally different. And then they already have an end system in mind for PvE. So in other words, not endless grinding against the same bounties, something to actually feel like a true end game for mercenaries.
I love in-game content. I'm just gonna throw that out there. Like in-game content, I wouldn't say it's like always necessary at every single point and everything, but in-game content is so much fun because it's like I don't know, it's like the maximum feeling of accomplishment, especially if you're not looking for the PvP side of things. To say that you've completed something, or back, I remember clearing Nax Ramus, in order to like get all those cards, or like the Frozen Throne stuff, and obtaining the Lich King. Um, and that stuff, like I was in the middle. That was probably the peak of my like want to play competitive standard Hearthstone up until recently. And I was all in on those modes, right? I mean, part of it's like,
Yeah.
hey, you kind of low key need these cards right now. But there was a guaranteed reward depending on how good you were, how well you build decks. And so I'm not sure what the in game content would be here, but end game it's so much fun because you get to look at yourself, and that's the only person you're playing against besides obviously the computer. Um, and just for instant reward. As soon as you clear it, you're just like, ah, that feels so good. It's just so warm when you finish that.
You're making me think about this in the way that World of Warcraft was structured in its earlier times. Like the trope was the game started at level 60, right? Level 60 was the level cap. So you would play the whole game. You would start at level 1 and you level up your character and you do all your class quests and you do all these dungeons to get all your cool gear and everything, and you got to level 60. That's the quote end of the game. But then there was so much after that point that you didn't see until you got there. And I feel like there is potential for that in Mercenaries, after hearing you talk about it, because like we're kind of in that same space where we're okay. Well, we have all our mercenaries, and we're just leveling them up and trying to get everything maxed out, and but then what? What's after that point? So what if, big what if they had an entire level of the game, an entire tier of the game that we don't even know about yet, that they're just still working on, right? Like to waiting for that moment when it's ready, A, and B, when the bulk of the audience has gotten to that tipping point where everything's maxed out and they're ready for the next thing, and here comes an entirely new side of the game that we haven't seen. So that's exciting. I'm excited for the future. Of course, that's probably quarter three, quarter four, but exciting to at least know that it's there.
That's very exciting. Keep me engaged. That's all I'm gonna say. And
Right.
I'm gonna use a Destiny 2 example. I don't remember what expansion it was, but anyways, I stopped playing halfway through an expansion. I wanted to focus on playing Rocket League and playing Hearthstone to the best of my ability, and I'd go back occasionally to play with my friends. But then I stopped entirely, and the end game content for that expansion came out, and because I was not playing the game at all, I did not go back for that end game content. Still to this day, have not completed it. Those quests, those items, the gear, nothing. Did none of it. However, a new expansion came out, and I was like, "Ooh, this is new. This is shiny," and that actually brought me back to playing Destiny. But since we're talking about end game content, like if you can't keep your hooks in me, the end game content is not going to bring me back, right? Because I've missed everything up into that. So I possibly, maybe I'm not leveled up enough. Maybe I don't know enough about the enemies. Maybe I don't know enough about the puzzles. Like whatever it is, I'm probably not coming back specifically just for end game content. But end game content is like the ultimate. Like I'm gonna give the ultimate thanks to the creators when they give me good end game content when I've been enthralled in the rest of the content for not even the entire time, but most of the rest of the time.
And to take that and kind of stretch that canvas back to the beginning of this discussion, keeping people engaged to get to that point is going to be the task for Team 5, because yes, it's exciting to talk about all the possible things they could do for mercenaries. But if we're talking 6, 9, 12 months down the road before things get fully realized, they've got to keep people in the game and interested in the game and excited for those long-term projects. And I think that's where these intermediate patches come into play, where they're going to drop some more mercs, they're going to drop some more bounties, the training grounds is going to get implemented, equipment's going to get easier to unlock, they're going to do whatever they're going to do with the bottom left corner of the screen, right? All of those things are hopefully going to keep people involved long enough for them to realize the full potential of this mode. And it, in a sense, I feel a little frustrated because it's like, is this another scenario where the developer developed a game to a certain point and kept developing while people were playing it? Because that is a frustrating thing in the game industry as a consumer of games. But fortunately, this is Hearthstone, and they're keeping people in the game client regardless. So hopefully this will keep people at least on the hook until we can get the full experience that they have envisioned over there.
Yeah, and I'm gonna do my very best to take all of this stuff not only with a grain of salt, but with a ray of hope.
Mhm.
And keep popping back in every so often, keep upgrading my mercenaries, because they're doing their best and they're trying really hard. And it's a well thought through game mode. It's just not fully fleshed out, and so I think discrediting it, speaking strictly for myself, so early on is not
Mhm.
fair. I mean, if I don't like something, I don't like something. I'm not going to pretend like I like something, but I also can't pretend to just not see the super cool stuff that's coming up in the future.
Yeah, I think that's like absolutely right. Mercenaries mechanically as a game is designed extremely well. It has immense potential for growth because the bones of the thing are just good. And again, we just got to keep people playing it until we can put some meat on those bones.
And at that point, it'll be a big, strong boy.
He'd be a big boy. He'll be a guff coming out of the water, all
Guff would kill
shimmery,
it.
and yeah, it'll be cute. Anyway, so that's that. We wanted to just kind of dig into to what Paul said, because there's a in as much as he didn't say much, there was a lot to read in between the lines. So we just kind of wanted to tackle that a little bit. So couple other things, little housekeeping. There is a tournament coming up, and it's actually very soon. So we're recording this on Monday, and the tournament is on Saturday, and it's being run by our friends at No Pros here. They're running it thanks to HS Replay. They're going to be contributing as well and it's being organized on Battlefy, as everything is. And it's a last hero tournament, or excuse me, it is a last hero standing tournament. Siimba, have you ever played last hero standing in Hearthstone?
I personally have not been a part
Okay.
of a last hero standing Hearthstone tournament.
Okay. So the essential thing to know is that you will have in mind a queue order. You're going to start with one, well, in Hearthstone it would be a deck, but here we're talking about a composition. So you're going to start with a composition, and you're going to keep playing that one as long as it wins. As soon as you lose with it, you goes away and you can't use it ever again. So you might only play your deck or your comp one time against your opponent who goes through all their decks because they keep losing, or you might trade back and forth until you get to your game 5. But these kind of tournaments are usually a best of 5, so first person of 3 wins. So it's kind of like the reverse of Conquest, where you have to win with all your decks. This is you have to knock all your opponent's decks out. So it's going to be really cool to see this in Mercenaries, and to see how it plays out inside the Mercenaries PvP structure. How's that appeal to you, Siimba?
I think that's actually super cool, because what we saw in the last tournament was they were literally forced to tell players, hey, you can only bring certain mercenaries a certain number of times just because of how strong things were. So to make you look like you can't fluke your way through wins here, right? If you take a loss, especially against a comp that you like don't expect to lose for, you can't just be floundering around. Like, you have to know what your next full set is. Granted, you do get to keep, I believe, 2 of your 6 mercenaries and replace 4 of them. So there's a chance that you keep your Karen and something else. But
Yeah,
I actually, as a person that's never played this style before, I don't hate it at all. I think it's actually pretty cool.
yeah, and
I
it's
do recall in standard at one point there had to have been this format, because it was someone who brought, it was like 3 mage decks, and I was like, how in the heck does this work? Or it was like mage deck with sideboard or something like that.
yeah.
It's like, what is this? And they played it out, and I was like, is this a mage mirror? Is anybody going to play cards? It was interesting. But I think it fits mercenaries really well.
Yeah, and since this is Mercenaries, it's not quite the same as having distinct decks in like it is in Hearthstone. They're modifying the format somewhat, where you have to change out the bulk of your composition for the next game if you lose. So it's yeah, like you said, you get to keep some things, but you have to change out other things. And what this kind of allows for, and you see this in Last Hero Standing in Hearthstone, is it allows for your opponent to hard counter you. So if you win with something super strong, like if somebody just totally wrecks you with a Diablo build, well, you can snap back with Gruul in your next party and hopefully counter Diablo back, and then they are going to come back with something else on the rebound. So it's a very dynamic way to play competitive Hearthstone, and in this case, competitive Mercenaries. Really interested to see how this plays out.
Yeah, and the benefit to the countering is, if you've won first and all the countering goes correctly, you'll win.
Hmm.
It'll take 5 games, but you'll get your second counter off first. And so there's benefit to actually bringing your strong, one of, if not your strongest comp out at the very beginning. I know sometimes there's a lot of mind games in standard, right? When you have 3 specific decks and you're trying to be like, oh well, they think I'm gonna pick this deck first, so I'm gonna pick Hunter instead, right? Well, not this case. Like, want that win round one.
Start with your strongest comp. Absolutely, you're right. Like I played a lot of Last Hero Standing, and that first win is so important. Yeah, I mean, you You understand. You said you have never played The Last Hero Standing, but I think you understand fully how that works.
Well,
Yeah.
conceptually, as soon as you explained it, I was like, oh, because I'm very, very familiar with Magic the Gathering, and
Right.
my brain immediately said, oh, sideboard. Like, that's like,
Yeah.
you lose, you get to pick from your sideboard, which is not what this is, but that's where my head went.
Yeah, it's a similar dynamic, I think. Yeah, you're absolutely right. That's us for this week, folks. We're glad to at least be still on the air despite all the COVID. I just, folks, really, seriously, please get your shot. If you haven't gotten your shot yet, schedule an appointment for the shot. It doesn't hurt, I promise, and it will keep you from getting sick. It will keep your loved ones from getting sick. Please, 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 protect yourself and protect the people you love. Okay, because everybody I know, Siimba, everybody I know has been getting sick with COVID, and it's really frustrating.
Oh yeah, everybody. I mean, people that are double vaxxed, people that are double vaxxed and boosted, people that are not. Like,
Mhm.
it is non-discriminatory. Like, I know people that have been vaxxed since before you could get vaxxed because they
Yeah,
work in like hospitals and stuff, and so they got it first so that they could help the people that were coming in super super sick, and they're getting sick. You know what I mean? It does. They're not coming out terminally ill, but again, if the people that are working with the people in the hospitals are getting sick, like, they have to come home, right? And like, what if they have kids,
right.
right? And they're not expecting to get sick because they're vaccinated. But if people, when they, I don't know, go to the grocery store, wherever, just like Cinder said, just get your shots or stay home. One of the two. Like,
Yeah,
at this point, it's so much less about belief in vaccines and phobias of needles and stuff like that. It's getting to the point where it's about survival.
yeah,
People, just because you're not sick and dying doesn't mean that nobody's died, right? Just because you're not gonna have a horrific time of it, or the person that you give it to might not have a horrific time of it. What about their grandparent that they give it to, or their child that
mhm,
they give it to, right? Like these
mhm,
people
mhm.
can catch things that you don't know how far it's spreading, right? Like, contact tracing wasn't really a huge job until COVID, and now there's people literally calling 5 people back from people that you interacted with because you went to a bar. And this is a tangent, but it's just like, could you please, like, just for the sake of everyone, like, I'm not really worried about how I feel about it. If you would just, like, please consider the public, because the public's not considering the public. Like, that's a fact. Like, we still have full contact sports, people playing games with no masks, bars are open still, and it's just like, I don't really know what's happening. It's either someone's lying or we don't care. It's one of those
Yeah.
things.
I'm look, the way I look at it is it's not a political thing because we all want the same thing. We all want things to go back to normal. And the fastest way to get everything to go back to normal, where we can all go back to going out and see our friends and doing things in public and putting our kids in school and all of that stuff, the fastest way that's going to happen is if you get vaccinated. And yeah, you could still get sick, but you won't get as sick, I promise you. I mean, Simba, you're vaccinated. How sick did you get? Was it bad or was it not bad?
It was not bad at all. It was actually
Okay.
so not bad that I was pissed that it happened at all, because the majority of the impact that it had on my life was that I could not go to work, which I would gladly not go to work to not get other people sick. But like, I
Sure.
felt bad on Monday. I got tested on Tuesday. By Thursday, no fever, mild cough. By Friday, no fever, no symptoms. The only medicine I took was vitamin C gummies and zinc tablets,
There you go.
and that was it. Nothing.
Yep. And had you not had a shot, I guarantee the COVID would have had a field day tromping through your immune system. So.
Oh, I'm not even going to talk about how it was the first time I got it before vaccinations were available.
Oh.
Oh yeah, and
Okay.
this is my second time with it, but the first time
Okay.
was, to this, what are we in, 2022 right now? It's in
Yep.
2020. I got it in
Okay.
2020 in June, like, before everything. And then when the vaccines came out, I got it almost immediately, as soon as I could, in April and May of last year. And so getting it again this time, I was like, I've literally had the cold worse than this.
Like 360 windmill slammed the counter at the pharmacy. Hit me up with that shot.
Give me
Uh,
that. Poke me again. Hey.
Anyway, yeah, enough of that. We're gonna get the heck out of here, y'all. You can find the show on YouTube, everywhere you can find your audio podcasts. You can find us on Twitter at Spirit Healer Pod. You can email us your suggestions, your ideas, your hate mail, your love mail to spirithealerpodcast@gmail.com and join the discussions on the Discord. I can't say this enough. We're all on the Discord. We watch the Discord. We're on the Discord all day. Do you want to see a photo of this incredible? I didn't post it in the Discord. All right, here's your incentive to go to the Discord. This past weekend, I had a king cake. If you know New Orleans, this Epiphany time is king cake time. That's where we get these delicious cinnamon brioche roll cakes covered in glaze and then dusted with crystallized sugar. They're delicious. They're wonderful, and we love them. I had one this weekend. It was a churro king cake topped with root beer ice cream with sarsaparilla ice cream, passion fruit chocolate magic shell, and there was a third thing, but it was so much I've already forgotten, but it was amazing. You want to see a photo of that cake? Come to the Discord and look in the food channel.
Okay, I'm gonna go to the food channel.
I've got my first victim. It's gonna come and look at my diabetes king cake.
See you guys later. You can look up my socials. I'll be in the food channel.
Yeah. So come to the Discord, please. We put the Discord link in the show notes. Although if you can find the link on the Twitter as well. It's everywhere. Just heck, go into your web browser and search Spirit Healer Podcast Discord. I'm sure it'll pop up. So we also want to thank Purrple Cat for the use of that amazing music that you hear at the beginning and end of every show. And for us, you can find Dawn, our dear dragon rider, who is still sick, but you can find her and give her your love and support on Twitter at DonnieDK. You can find her Twitch channel at dragonrider DK. And she has a YouTube link in here for the Dr. 3 podcast. So please check her out talking about regular Hearthstone over on Dr. 3 HS. As for me, I'm just on Twitter. I'm at Cinder Ascendant. You can come and yell at me about Magic or D&D or whatever you want to talk about. I'm here for it. Siimba, where can people find you?
You can find me everywhere. I am omnipotent, and I'm just kidding. You can find me on most socials at SiimbaTV_ or Siimba Stone on YouTube, because if you don't like Siimba Stone, you don't like Hearthstone. I would say it's a fact that people don't know yet. So come check it out so I can make that a factual statement instead of just saying it. But we love you guys. Hope to see you on literally all of the social things, or on Ladder, or on Mercenaries, or on Twitch, or on literally anything, because we appreciate you. Thank you for your support, for listening, for talking, interacting. We appreciate it.
So thank you once again for choosing us as your resting place of choice. We'll see you again in a week.